Testing. Testing, testing. Testing. Can anyone hear me? Hi, Zach. Thank you for confirming. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Christy, hi. Thank you for joining. Okay, we'll give it a few more minutes before we begin, but I hope you all are having a great Saturday so far. Hello, Mike. Okay, so we'll give it a few minutes and, we'll go through questions, requests that anyone has, but I would really appreciate, if you have a question, just put it a Q in the front, and then, you can just ask the question. Okay, it'll help me be able to just monitor the chat and go through any questions. Okay, so we'll be talking about just overall Bitcoin market, as well as covering, several stocks I've been, covering throughout every day. But this will be an opportunity for anyone who has questions. I could, go through your question and give my overall updates. We'll start in about 1 minute. Where are you guys watching from, by the way? Zach, 3IS, Christy, Mike. Where are you guys from? I'm based out here in California. Yeah, just let me know where where everyone is watching from. I always get encouraged by just hearing where everyone is located. So we have Zach from Massachusetts. So it's 6 o'clock over there. I hope everyone is adjusted, getting better with the daylight savings here. All right, so we will start in about a minute, but I would appreciate everyone just putting your questions, requests in the chat, and then we'll go through all the updates here. Oklahoma, very cool. I've never been out to Massachusetts or Oklahoma. So we have East Coasters so far. Alrighty, well, let's get started. Well, thank you all for joining. I'm so grateful for everyone here so far. I typically try to go a live session like once every Saturday or Sunday, just still trying to get used to, what day out of the weekend would be best, Saturday or Sunday. So let me know what your thoughts are, whether you prefer Saturday or Sunday. But we'll go ahead and get started. So let's take a look at just Bitcoin price. So we're looking at just near term perspective of Bitcoin here. Good news is, just as we start in the weekend here, as well as Friday, Bitcoin is showing signs of light here. I think what the worry factor was when we saw that Trump pump back in early March, about 2 weeks ago, where it went from it had that drop off of 70,000 all the way up to that Trump pump. And then once the market opened, on Monday, there was just a big pullback. And then we started seeing some consolidation. We thought that, hey, Bitcoin's going to start recovering. And then what happened with all of the tariff news? That's when we started seeing continual retracement of Bitcoin. I think That's where we started seeing the CMC fear factor kick in so much, just with price of Bitcoin getting down to about 76,000. I hope that you took advantage of just being able to accumulate more Bitcoin, especially around this price here. But what we're noticing is like since the last couple of days, we've been seeing some nice consolidation, Bitcoin just hovering here, and just based on technicals, what I like seeing is, the price action. We're seeing volume pick up here as well, Friday as well as today in the trading. We're not seeing heavy fluctuations as much as what we've seen in the last 2 weeks, but good news is that Bitcoin is, current price action is it's above the Ichimoku cloud. I like to look at the overall like conversion line versus the baseline. Key thing is that we want to see the blue conversion line. That's like the 9 day versus the baseline here, which is 26 days. We saw that blue crossing, and what's key is having the price action be above the crossing of the blue line against the baseline here. But hopefully we just continue to see that upward motion. Yes, this is just looking at it from a near-term perspective. Price of Bitcoin can go below that Ichimoku cloud, but just scaling out here as we look at longer term perspective here, just with being above that Ichimoku cloud since November when we got the Trump news, and what happened since the all-time high of 110, that retracement here. But I definitely do think that here is an opportunity to dollar cost average down here. Definitely just with overall price point. Well, we'll go through the updates with some catalysts as well, but hopefully as we look at it from a long-term perspective here, I definitely do think that we may very well just see further accumulation price of Bitcoin getting above the clouds here and then have a nice big breakthrough here. I'm forecasting somewhere in this year alone, we may very well see Bitcoin break 150,000 to 200,000. The sweet spot I'm thinking is somewhere around 180,000. But again, I don't have that magic 8 ball. Just based on where we are, just with the fundamentals, all of the driving catalysts, there is an opportunity for Bitcoin to gap up. We have just the government advocating for Bitcoin on top of the strategic Bitcoin reserve as an executive order. There's also now Cynthia Lund is trying to push forward the Bitcoin Act of 2025 for the United States to actually use their current funds to buy up Bitcoin up to about 1 million Bitcoin. So what does that mean? There's potential that we may very well, like, I think with the Doge that's going on with the audit of Fort Knox, as well as, David Sachs, auditing the digital crypto assets. As soon as those two audits take place and we determine how much gold we have, how much crypto assets we have, that's where we're going to consider, based on the current gold certificates, how much of the gold certificates do we want to convert that to Bitcoin. And I think we all know that Bitcoin tends to have much higher appreciation rate of return from a year-to-year perspective, which is why the government is trying to push for that. So let's take a look here at the chat. All right, so Munich, so I3, okay, so we have 3ISK from Germany, Munich, 11 p.m. Thanks for, just joining at a late night here. So Mike, look into NBIS, an AI company that NVIDIA bought $130 million worth its stock. It only has a float of 192. Thank you for sharing that. I'm definitely going to take a look at that NBIS. So thanks for sharing that. Especially with NVIDIA buying out a company, an AI company, there's definitely potential. We saw NVIDIA doing very well last week, and just quantum computing all of a sudden, on Friday, we saw some nice run-ups like quantum computing, QUBT. In the last couple months, we saw like, Soundhoon running, SOUN. All right. So, what is your take on current bearish sentiment? Do you think the switch will come in the near future? Okay, so we'll definitely cover that right now. I'm going to go through, more updates here. So, Bitcoin, currently hovering at like 84,000, healthy consolidation right now. But let's just take a look at some of the recent Wall Street data here. So, I wanted to cover this update here. This is, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is coming out from the Department of Labor, United States of America, based on the data here. So last week we saw markets, really happy seeing that inflation, typically, consumer price index, that is an indicator to let us know whether things are getting more expensive or not. And just based on here, you see the trend line here, just with the percentage changing with CPI. That's a key indicator of seeing that inflation may very well go down. We also had PPI data be announced, and I think that that actually gave us insight that we may very well have rate cuts coming up. So I think one of the good things is as we see, the CPI percentage going down here, that's where, Trump may very well use that as a negotiation with Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve to push for, pulling that lever down to reduce federal funds rate. And when the Fed rates become reduced, that's where the economy may very well start picking up. Why? That's where people are able to take loans with lower interest. And what does that mean? Whether loans can be used to support businesses or actually taking loans to invest. I think a lot of people right now are trying to consider, taking loans either for business or for investment opportunities. But this is a great signal here, just seeing the consumer price index changing here. Also looking at the Bitcoin rainbow price chart here. So one of the key things, I think it's important to look at this because for every halving event, minor difficulty, the revenue gets cut in half. And how do miners actually gain revenue? I mean, that's through the price of Bitcoin. So as you think about supply and demand, the supply of Bitcoin only gets more and more scarce. But what does that mean? Overall, price of Bitcoin is expected to go up. So as we look at the recent halving event here, we haven't seen price of Bitcoin really run up here yet. So I think what's key is we're in that buy phase. We haven't had the relative strength index really kick in here. All right, so looking at the chat here, 3IS, hope that answers your question, but also, just looking at the Bitcoin bull run here. So we're expected to see, Bitcoin, I know this is a pretty aggressive number here, 250,000, but I'm thinking somewhere around that sweet spot of like 180,000. I think that's achievable in this year alone. One other key indicator I think is very important for us to look at. Hi, Jason. Thanks for joining. So this is a key indicator here for us to look at here. And I like looking at the M2 global supply, just with the rate of growth and, any percentage change with the M2 global supply, that just represents much more liquidity coming into the global markets. So we're looking at a total of 21 central banks here. In pink, we're seeing here uh, since January 5th, we're seeing an uptick here. So in Q1, we're seeing definite improvements here where, we went from like 90, 105 trillion now to like, 108 trillion, so 3.76% rate of increase with the M2 global supply. However, we see Bitcoin price retracement here. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is M2 global supply. That's like a leading indicator that we monitor. and Bitcoin tends to follow the M2 global supply. It lags by about 8 weeks. So we're expected to see an inverse with the Bitcoin price here. So with the whole bearish market sentiment, I think there's like so much fear going on with tariff news, trade wars, and all that. But I think what we're noticing is that even with the negotiations going on right now with like Russia, Ukraine, United States, I think Putin, he's open to negotiation. He knows that he's winning in this whole like war against Ukraine. Ukraine is really just hoping that the United States plays the cards right. But I think Trump knows exactly how to, make those chess moves. And Putin is only looking for the best offer, so he's going to just see what's there to be offered and take on that that negotiation. But I think that at one point we may very well see this war end, between Ukraine and Russia. Why? I think with Trump, I think that he is a businessman, a peaceman, and he could very well stop this war. As soon as that happens, I think people are really going to forget about all the tariff news and all that, because the war ending will just change the psychological consumer confidence, and that may be the catapult for the stock market. So I think Trump, his vision right now is to stop that war, because that's going to be a big milestone win that he's been advocating throughout the whole campaign, that if he was, the president at the time, then this war would not even have existed. So by being able to stop the war during his term, like early on, not even like 100 days into his presidency, doing that will be a big time chapter milestone achievement that most presidents are not able to achieve. So I think that's going to be a big driving factor. And with tariff news, I think a lot of what's going on right now is just uncertainty around tariffs. I think most people don't realize that tariffs is really going to allow for the United States to position itself to become much stronger. Now, yes, granted, from a contrarian perspective, there can be the slowdown of money. As soon as you hear, like 50% tariffs on alcohol, 200% tariffs on like wine from like France to US, that's where the flow of money slows down, because countries are trying to combat one another when it comes to like profit margins. But I think overall that will put America first and allow for countries to start respecting the United States and really give into the different types of way when it comes to investment trading. So I think all of this is really going to change as we look at just the dynamics of global trade wars, globalization, business trading. But in the context of Bitcoin, we do know that there's the strategic Bitcoin reserve, 200,000 Bitcoins here. You see the United States here establishing that reserve. None of this is going to be sold here. Really, it's a race right now between USA and China. I mean, you have UK here with 61,000, so that's good. Germany's selling their Bitcoin. That was a big, incorrect move that they had done. But overall, it's really a race right now between USA and China, which is why Senator Cynthia Lummis came out with that, Bitcoin Act reserve to buy up 1 million Bitcoins. There's only 21 million Bitcoins available, and it's only a race right now to increase that number. And as soon as that number increases, or even if a state within the United States starts buying up Bitcoin, like Texas, that's when the price of Bitcoin is going to start running up here. We also look at Bitcoin space race here. So it's really a race right now. We're looking at, countries competing right now. You have here USA 207, China 194,000 Bitcoins, followed by UK, Ukraine, and all that. Eventually, there's just going to be more and more countries trying to get into this race here. Even Russia, like, they're trying to get involved into this Bitcoin space race here. Yeah, I mean, Germany, that's just bad there. I know, 3IS here, you're from Germany, and all of a sudden Germany just took away their whole treasury here around that time of volatility. And what happened? Price just shot up. But of course, you don't have a magic 8 ball, but I think Germany made the wrong move there. But with that, I wanted just to play a quick clip of, just with what is told here by Brian, CEO of Coinbase. So there you heard it from Brian there. Bitcoin is really going to be the gold standard, and like what Michael Saylor would say, Bitcoin is, the economic shield. It's really going to transform traditional finance and be the future of cyberspace. All right, so it looks like we have SJOERD here. What's your price target of Riot? So we'll definitely cover that. I'm going to get into the technicals of Riot here before we move further here based on your question. So let's take a look at price action of Riot Platforms here. So I have 3 lines here. The red line here, support level at $6. We saw that back in 2023. I have a yellow line here, resistance at $13. I have a green line here, heavy resistance at $20, which we saw, right, achieve that price back in 2023. Last year, 2024, we saw, resistance at around 18, resistance at around 18. It hit that, twice in 2024. And we saw multiple occurrences of just this year as well, hitting like, 14. One of the key things I want to point out is, yes, we do see these downward, arrows here, right, with heavy, shorts here, suppression with the price action, right? We see about 6 heavy suppressions here. But one of the key things I want to point out is even before those heavy suppression, look at the relative strength index before that heavy suppression. It was above 70 before this big arrow line here, before it had, before it was suppressed down by shorting. What happened? It was at an RSI of 80, and then it dropped down to oversold. And then we see another overbought RSI here, coupled by downward pressure. Then we also saw the RSI run back up, along with heavy suppression where the RSI was below 20, this pink line here. And then what happened after that? We saw that, that little subtle run up back in July, to $13. And then it dropped back down by heavy suppression, around September. And then what happened after that? We saw RSI kick up here, at around, 78, overbought here at like $15 when Trump was elected. But what happened after that? Since then, November to now, it's been pushed out by 5 months here. So we also have heavy suppression here. RSI is like extremely oversold. I have highlights here that we're going to see price action run back up. Relative strength is going to kick back up, reversal. RSI is not going to stay fixed. You look at the whole history of Riot here, you just see ebbs and flows here, ebbs and flows. So just based on technicals and the fundamentals, this thing is bound to go back up. And what does that mean? Price action. People are fearful right now, but buying in at these prices, dollar cost averaging down, definitely opportunity for big time gains here. And as soon as we hear, any news with HPC AI client ink deal, this price can very well run up here. So key takeaway is based on technicals, because Riot has been heavily oversold, it's going to be, running up very soon here. So I hope that answers your question there, SJ. Okay, hope that gave you color on the technicals. Just key thing here is, the RSI being overbought February to the next overbought July. So that was like a long 6 months before that apex. So here, October to like March, we're around that long apex there. Typically, it's much shorter than that, but this RSI is going to just bounce back up very soon here, just based on technical analysis. All right, so going back to okay, what are your thoughts on Wimble protocol crypto privacy coin? So I actually don't have an answer to that. That is actually something new to me. So thanks for sharing that, Van Hexus. I'll have to do some research and get back to you on that. I don't have a direct answer. But unless anyone has any perspective on that, please feel free to share that in the chat. Okay, so I'll continue to move forward, but please put your questions in the chat. I would really appreciate it. So here we have Michael Saylor posting BMAX here. So what happened last week was there was BMAX Rex Bitcoin Corporate Treasury ETF holding convertible bonds established. And one of the interesting things is that now that attracts a lot more investors, ETFs, people who don't invest in cryptocurrency but trying to hedge to have like MicroStrategy, even the miners. So when you look at the inception of this fund, that happened about 1 day ago, right, on Nasdaq. You see that expense ratio there each year, 0.85%. But you look at the top fund holdings, you have MSTR mainly. But here's the interesting thing, you have Mara and Riot too. So we'll be covering Mara and Riot. But when you look at the top 3 North American companies that have the most Bitcoin, obviously MicroStrategy with like 500,000 Bitcoins on their treasury, Mara with 50,000 Bitcoins, close to Riot with close to 20,000 Bitcoins on their treasury. This is interesting because now BMAX is hedging against the top 3 companies with the most Bitcoin. So I think that is only going to add value to these companies here, especially with this type of information. So let me know what your thoughts are, what your questions are. I'll just continue forward here. Now we will be looking at just this comment here. MSTR's MNAV is bouncing off its exponential range lows. Could this be the start of big things? Okay, so MNAV, what does that mean? Think in terms of Bitcoin value as well as the the business value. So those are the 2 variables that are relative. So when MSTR's MNAV is high, that's when the price of MSTR goes up. So you see this high point here. This would be correlated with the price reaching all-time high of like $550. Where we are right now, MNAV being like extremely low here, you can correlate that with relative strength. We'll take a look at that here. Relative strength meaning the RSI here, at one point, this was heavily oversold here. I mean, at one point, it got down to like $230 with MSTR. The shorters took advantage of that. They tried to suppress MSTR, especially with that run up of 550. At that point, it was like 800% year-to-date performance. Ended the year with 400%. But dropping off from like 530 down to like 230, that's a big drop off of like 60% within a matter of months. But here, just based on technicals here, we saw that overbought situation here, right? So obviously profit taking definitely happens based on just technical analysis. Things just can't keep going up no matter how strong of a company you are. But because MSTR has been hovering in this bull flag for X amount of months here, I think that there's big potential for a big run up here. One of the key indicators that I'd be interested in seeing here is, we're seeing that moving average cross here. So in orange, that's the 9-day moving average cross. That green line there, that's the 21-day moving average. Uh, we're eventually going to see a blue cross. I'm thinking sometime next week we're going to see that cross. But as soon as that happens, I'm thinking the bulls are going to want to take the price action up. Volume's going to increase. Relative strength is going to start bouncing up. I think this is looking like a good sign here for MSTR. Even if, let's say, you bought in at a high cost average of like 400 or 380, I wouldn't worry so much. Even if you have funds, I would consider dollar cost averaging. It's definitely undervalued from my perspective still, when you compare it to that run up. So let's say if you don't have funds, or if you do, take a look at that. But even if you don't, just remain patient. I wouldn't worry so much if you're at a high cost average. We're looking at a good state here. In fact, Friday we had a big green candlestick, 13% gain. That's big news there. All right, so taking a look at the chat here. Okay, so I'm glad you asked that question there, SJ. Hopefully that gave you perspective on Riot. And let me know what your questions are. But let's take a look at overall Bitcoin price right now, 84,000. Definitely looking much better here. We're looking at a 7-day range here. Nice consolidation. I mean, being able to buy at 76,000, I mean, it's so hard to time that there, but I think anything below 100K is much better than buying at 100K. But, that run up, since November, I think we're cut in half here, but, you give it more time to consolidate, it'll, give it, time to run back up into that 100,000 range. Yes, I will definitely cover CleanSpark. So we're going to continue forward here. All right, so CleanSpark. Let's take a look at the technicals of CleanSpark. So we're seeing a bull flag established here, and this is a long-term perspective bull flag here. Okay, so I like looking at it from a long-term view here. Key thing here is back in 2024, we saw, CleanSpark go from like $3 to like $25. This thing was like one of the best stocks last year, heading into like February, March. And then since March of last year, which is about a year ago, it's been just, retracing down. Yes, we did see that bounce back interim back in like November. But since that November time point, just zooming in here, it was at about $18, since November. So from mid-November to like, late February, it dropped by so much percentage, like, close to 70% there. I think what we're seeing here is heavy shorting. The shorting percentage, it went up by like close to 30%. But again, just based on technicals, shorts can't always suppress the stock here. And looking at the prior oversold position, where the RSI was below 20, what happened here? It ran back up, right, from like $8 to 17, 18, and then you see that high overbought relative strength. What happened since then to now? It's oversold. But this is where, let's say, if you have conviction, or even if you don't even have funds, consider dollar cost averaging or holding, because eventually the strength of this stock is going to bounce back up, especially driven from Bitcoin reaching all-time high this year. Going back to, the overall Bitcoin charts here, every halving event we've seen with the last 12 years, there was 3 halving events covering the last 12 years of the Bitcoin cycle. that was coupled with a Bitcoin bull run, a Bitcoin bull run. We haven't seen that yet, but we know that just based on the way that Bitcoin is designed, there's a limited fixed supply. And with the law of having events making it more difficult to mine Bitcoin, it makes Bitcoin more scarce. And for those reasons, that'll be coupled with an increase in the price of each Bitcoin. All right. So based on my perspective of CleanSpark here, I do think that yes, while we do see heavy shorting here, I do think that it may have the opportunity to end March to get back into like that $12 range. In the next 2 weeks of trading, it may very well get into that double digit range. April timeframe, I think we're going to start seeing some nice blast off numbers here. Okay, so I hope that answers your question there. Do you think the current price is still undervalued and see it as a good buying opportunity? I think your question, I answered that. I definitely do think it's a significantly undervalued. Based on technicals, you want to buy when the relative strength is like below 20. That's going to correlate to an undervalued price here. At $7, you could very well double that. Like 100% gain. And once it goes up to $14, and if you have more conviction with that, holding it to like 21, that's like 2x gain there. So I do think that miners had such a heavy beating in the year 2024. Seasonality, I do think that it's going to kick in, even though this quarter has been just a big anomaly here. But that's all because of the retracement of Bitcoin price. Any run up from like 84,000 to 100K to 110K, the miners are going to run by like double or triple that performance. So thank you for your question. That was an interesting one. But let me know what your questions are. I'd love to answer more questions. But let's take a look at also here the biggest miner here, Mara. So we're seeing a big correlation here with Bitcoin. We see that bull flag here with MSTR bull flag here. We see it with CleanSpark bull flag here. Also, Mara, we have a bullish pennant flag here. What's going on? Price of Mara at $13, extremely undervalued. Back in November, this thing was like at $30. I think this puppy is about to run big time here. So definitely undervalued. Let's say if you like CleanSpark, you like Riot, you like Mara, I think it's going to be difficult to tell which one's going to run, but I do think that the big three miners are going to run. And as we head into, closer towards the end of March, I do think that, Bitcoin price before the end of March, it's going to, run up somewhere around the high 90s or perhaps even 100K. I think that is where MicroStrategy is going to, perform very well with the Q1 earnings report, and that's where FASB report's going to be leveraged as well. We didn't see FASB report kick in with MSTR's recent updates, but I think FASB being applied to Q1 earnings report, that's going to be big time fireworks. And can you imagine if Bitcoin price ends in March above like 98K or 100K? That's going to be big time news here for like MSTR. All right. So what other questions do you all have here? I hope that everyone found this valuable here with the live stream going on here. All right. So yeah, I think between the three, that really depends. one of the things to keep in mind is that, CleanSpark, yes, they have good earnings and all that, but think about their positioning as well. I think everything goes through ebbs and flows. Like after this Bitcoin bull cycle of this year, right, there's going to be ebbs and flows. And I think that one thing to keep in mind is like companies like Riot Platforms here. I definitely do think that a lot of people aren't talking about this one here, but where the current price is similar to CleanSpark, this thing can like run up very fast here. Just based on the technicals here, I really do think that we're going to see that blast off here with the RSI getting back up here very soon. There's no question that it's not going to, not going to have like a overbought RSI. Technicals tells us that there's ups and down, and eventually we're going to see this up coming up very soon. So I do think that between all the miners, Riot can outperform CleanSpark. Yes, there's a difference with the fundamentals, but both companies demonstrated, solid revenue performance. Of course, CleanSpark has that very bullish hash rate to 50 exahash. But also keep in mind that Riot has the gigawatt capacity that a lot of real estate investors are looking right now in support of the Stargate AI platform. But they also mine a huge number of Bitcoin as well, close to about 500 Bitcoins every month. Okay, so SJ, do you think Riot buy more shares of Bitfarms? I think that, it depends. We may see more buying of Bitfarms. I think Bitfarms, the current price of it hovering at around $1, definitely undervalued, and they bring in, like 220 Bitcoins per month, right? And they're, considering AI as well. So it may very well be possible that Riot increases their share count with Bitfarms. All right. So with that, I hope that you all enjoyed this live stream here. Just first off, I'm just so grateful that you all were able to join here. But let me know what other questions you have. Perhaps I can take another question here. So we see Bitcoin hovering at 84,000 here. I'm going to put a poll here. Okay, so I just put a poll. I'd love to get your guys' perspective on that as to whether Bitcoin has that ability to reach all-time high or not. Price of Bitcoin currently at 84,000. Hopefully, we see this thing will start running up tonight, Sunday, and then all these stocks are going to follow that as soon as we open up, market tomorrow or, Monday. So, are there any news on Riot AI strategy? So, when it comes to Riot AI here, so let's take a look at their. So you see here, Riot, they have held, 17,000 Bitcoins. Of course, that number's changed since now. Let's continue down here. All right, so here, so you see here, they're doing their research on AI here, and basically they're assessing the demand capabilities here. And you see here the big time Mag 7 companies like Microsoft, they're investing big time into AI data centers. Meta as well, investing, $65 billion. So there's commitment from the Mag 7s as well as like Alphabet, Google, right? Google has Gemini. Uh, there's just so much demand for HPC AI right now. Stargate right here as well, right? So Stargate project is in Texas here. Chat GPT, OpenAI, SoftBank, Oracle, they're part of that Stargate project there. So this thing is only going to continue to ramp up, and Texas is going to be where the main location is for Stargate. But when you think about where Riot is based out of, they have, you know, energy capacity at the Corsicana and the Rockdale facility here. So it's interesting that they have the wattage supply, so it's attractive time to market. And the thing is, they can research. Now they have, change in the board of directors. The prior CEO of, I believe, Hut 8, part of the team, an engineer from Meta who has experience in data center build outs, as well as, an experienced person with real estate. So I think all of that is going to really help Riot aggressively position itself into HPC AI. And there was, change in the, in the investment as well, where you have, DE Shaw investing as well as, Starboard investing into Riot Platforms. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here. I think they're going to be, so you see here, Altman Solon feasibility study is expected to be completed mid-March. So I'm thinking somewhere next week we may very well hear some announcement as to whether they are going to, build out the Corsicana facility to scale up with HPC AI, or are they going to announce it with an ink deal with the client first and announce that? And we've seen what happened with Iron's share price running up, 40% in a matter of one day. So definitely some huge upside with Riot here. So I do think, just based on probability, Riot, I mean, you have the facility, right? And you basically have the land that hasn't, you know, had the walls put up yet, but you do have 1 gigawatt capacity that's already, you know, uh, installed and it's approved by Texas. So definitely the opportunity for building towards AI, the probability of that being able to happen is really high. As for bit farms, I do think that just based on technicals, uh, Bitfarm has the ability to run up as well, along with these miners. So, Riot, as I was looking at technicals here, we're going to see another red dot coming up here very soon here, and that price is just going to bounce back here. You can't keep the price down for that long, along with CleanSpark as well. This cup and handle is forming. Mara, I think we're going to see a breakout with Mara as well, on top of MicroStrategy. So I like all of these stocks. I also like, where Bitcoin price action is. Actually, sprinkled some more, bought some, Bitcoin, MicroStrategy as well. So I do think that, we have great opportunities here. So it looks like we had a couple votes here, and there's some of you believe that Bitcoin is going to reach 180,000. One vote, believing that we won't reach that number. So interesting take. I think that it's going to happen. There's just so much going on right now, with so much, market sentiment is basically what I'm you know, just looking at, you have Trump announcing strategic Bitcoin reserve, CPI data going down, and then Jerome Powell is gonna, provide his updates as soon as he says, "Hey, we're gonna aggressively, pull down that lever, bring down the federal funds rate." People are gonna start taking loans, right? And they may very well use the loan money to buy MSTR Bitcoin or invest into their business. But that's really going to drive the economy up. And any news with Trump ending this war in Ukraine and Russia, that's really going to drive up the stock market. Most of you are wondering, like, hey, are we like going to experience a stock market crash? Are we entering a recession? Here's one thing: market correction, those are common. It happens once every 24 months, once every 2 years, where you get a 10% drop off from the S&P. What's less common is market recession or going into a bear market in that S&P drops by about 20% or more. That happens once every 6 years. So we've seen that during COVID timeframe. Back in 2022, we had some huge sell-off as well, but we're still in that 3 year time frame. We haven't even got to that 6 year duration. Again, it may be different though, right? This is just based on 90 years of data points where, on average, we go through a bear market once every 6 years. So based on the data, we're expected to have a bear market, like 3 years from now or longer or less. But that's why I believe that we're just going through a short-term market correction, which is why I believe Bitcoin price definitely a great opportunity to dollar cost average down. MSTR definitely opportunity to buy into MSTR, especially with MNAV being at super low prices here, along with the big three miners like Mara here in this bullish pennant flag. We're going to see a breakout. I wouldn't be surprised it goes back into $30 come April. CleanSpark as well, reaching back up into that $18. Riot getting back into that near term $14 that we saw just recently back in February. So I think things are looking good. So Mitch here, thank you for your comment. Nice YouTube videos. Where do you see CleanSpark going within the next few months? So Mitch, thank you for your question. Bitcoin price here, just based on the hourly here, it's above the Ichimoku cloud. I love seeing this consolidation here. Key thing is we see that retracement, yes, but near term we're seeing price action here, consumer confidence. Again, the whales are buying, right? Kathy Woods bought 81 million. BlackRock, they loaded up more into their IBIT ETF. Also, we have big time whales buying up Bitcoin and MicroStrategy as well, including BlackRock. So this is supported by the recent acquisitions buying up more Bitcoin. But as soon as we continue to see consolidation, along with any catalyst news with easing of the war between Russia and Ukraine, with Trump negotiating with Putin, I think Bitcoin is going to be off to the races. And one thing to keep in mind is that there's also the state level strategic Bitcoin reserve. This is really going to push the price up as soon as we hear Texas buying Bitcoin once they get that approved. And for that reason, I think CleanSpark, in the next couple of months, like sometime in April, I'm thinking that we're going to see that retest into the $18. Question is, are we going to see that run back up to $25? Things run back up, but it comes with time, right? You can't just have it go down and then just shoot back up. You got to give it time. But given the fact that we're a year out now, where it's back into that single digit, it may very well just start pumping back up. think about Bitcoin getting up to 180. It may very well blast off, get beyond that, even $30, $40. One thing to keep in mind is strategy in, like what Michael Saylor was saying, in the next 48 months, Bitcoin is going to be the top number one asset. So think about these miners here, like Mara, CleanSpark, and Riot. They have hodls like over 10,000 Bitcoins. So as soon as Bitcoin becomes the number one asset bypassing gold, these companies, their market capitalization is going to be, right now they're like in the single digit billions. It's going to convert and transform into a multi-billion-dollar company. So we're just only going to see the price go up as a result of that. Okay, so the current situation is just an artificial regression due to Ukrainian war and tariff war from my point of view. Once things are sorted out, the market will see a strong bullish movement. I totally agree. Given the fact that this is Trump's last term here, he's going to end it with the big bang. He wants people to remember him, so he wants to end this war. He even calls himself a peacemaker. He's not a war creator. So as soon as he does that, people are just going to really cherish and embrace what he's done. And people believe in him, like everyone believes that their wallet, their investments are only going to grow. So even though we're seeing all this movement with market uncertainty right now, all of that is just going to change eventually. So JG here, I bought MSTX earlier this week when MSTR was around 240 with great swing trade. Mostly everything Bitcoin related is under 200-day moving average. So lots of good opportunities. Wow, great investment there, swinging that. Also, you look at like, MSTU, MSTX, right? Huge swings right there, but just like with MSTU going up to $30 and then getting down to $3, that's a steal, and it jumped from $3 to $6, similar to MSTX. Big time swings, but MNAV, I think, key thing here is, just with the MNAV of MSTR, it's going to bounce up here. So, long-term perspective, MicroStrategy has definitely some great upside here. So I really enjoyed all of the perspectives that everyone has shared here. So also just thank you all for even joining here. I also released a video not too long ago. So, because we're at the hour live stream here, I would really appreciate, you guys subscribing, liking, turning on the bell notification if you found value from this content. And thanks for stopping by to watch this live stream and engaging here. But for the most part, we'll do this again next weekend, whether that's Saturday or Sunday. But just wanted to thank you all. So JG, you've been watching this whole time, but you didn't post anything. Yeah, so we're at the 59-minute here, but thank you all for joining here. I hope that you all enjoyed the live stream. If you're not part of the channel, all I ask is subscribing. That would really help. But thank you guys. Really appreciate you all stopping by here. So take care.